Hello and welcome to the Parents Podcast, brought to you by UCAS. This is your trusted guide to everything when it comes to education. Now, today we're going to be talking about a topic where there's often confusion. We're going to be talking about clearing, often seen as a last-minute option. The reality is that thousands of students go through clearing every year. So today we're going to bring you what you need to know as a parent and how you can best support your child getting into higher education through this route. And we're going to do this with the help of my guests on the podcast today. I'm joined by Rena Littlehales, who's a clearing expert from Keele University. And back on the Parents Podcast for a second time, it's Clem Wade, who's a teacher and careers advisor. Welcome both. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. So, lots to talk about today, lots to get through. This is a big topic, but we're going to break it down. So, let's go back to basics then. When it comes to clearing, starting with you, Rena, what is it and who can use it?
So clearing is an option for students when they're kind of coming to the end of their UCAS process. So if they've already got a UCAS application in and they've been thinking about higher education, when it comes round to results day or even before results day, students can start to have a think about whether the choices that they've made still align with where they are on their pathway right now. You know, being conscious that students made their UCAS application sometimes up to 9 or 10 months before results day comes round and before they're ready to go to university. So their minds might have changed and they might be thinking something slightly different. So it's the opportunity for them to have a little bit of a think and look at those choices and see if there are any other courses or other universities that might better suit them. It's a process designed by UCAS to help them think a little bit more about what their next step will be coming up on results day as well.
And I think the word you use there is so right. It's an opportunity. It's a chance where they're like, okay, actually, maybe I didn't get that decision right, or, oh, maybe I did better. Or, did you know 12,000 students last year, or 12,000 people last year applied first time to university via clearing? So it's essentially another way of applying to university in a later timeline, because students normally apply up until January, but clearing opens from July all the way up until October the 20th. So essentially it's another chance of reapplying to university or applying in the first instance and thinking, this is what works for me now.
So let's talk a bit about how that works side by side then. Can students look into clearing even if they've got an offer then, Clem?
Absolutely, yes, they can. It's really important that we know this. So, come results day, they get their results, then they can phone as many universities as they want, get loads of offers from the clearing advisors, and then they can think about it. Officially, they can't put a clearing offer in UCAS until 1 p.m. of results day anyway, and I think that's kind of an inbuilt system of trying to slow people down. So, shop around. Keep your firm or your insurance there safe, so you don't need to kind of you don't need to put yourself at risk, and then consider which of your clearing choices you like the best, or if you want to stick with your firm. If you want to go to your clearing choice, you then click decline your offer, and then you put the new clearing, all my hand gestures, you put the clearing choice in your UCAS hub, bish, bash, bosh.
Okay, and that's interesting because you will see this from the other side.
Yeah, so absolutely. So from a university's perspective, so what we'll do is we'll be answering the phone lines, usually from kind of most university phone lines will open slightly before, but we'll mention about embargo. So there's a period of time when universities have results and we can't talk about them. So usually it's 8 o'clock on the dot, that embargo is lifted in the morning and the phone lines will start to ring. And what we'll start to do is we'll take all that information. We'll take the UCAS ID, student name, and then we'll take the results they've received from their level 3 qualifications, their GCSE qualifications if those are necessary. We'll save that on our admission systems. And then we will generate an email offer to students for them to be able to, as Clem said, add at 1 p.m. So Clem's exactly right. There's that kind of built-in wait-in time to help students have a think about whether that's the right choice or option for them. And there are loads of videos on the UCAS website and on the hub to help you understand, help the young person understand the step-by-step things they need to do to be able to decline their place if they choose to go with their clearing offer instead.
So no, the university records and saves their offer in principle, because I think a lot of students get a bit worried of, oh, that's a really vacuous conversation. Has that actually produced anything? They've saved it, their end. Your offer is okay, it's secure for a period of time. Make sure you get your young person to ask how much time they do have, and then away they go.
Shopping around, actually then, nothing to lose, really, by the sounds of it.
Absolutely, and as I said, opportunity.
that can be the confusing thing as a parent. There are a lot of dates to remember here, aren't there? And there's a lot when it comes to the timeline. So, Clem, you've mentioned some of them already. Just walk me through the timeline when it comes to clearing.
No problem. Okay, so firstly, let's just go back a bit. So students have to apply to university by the end of January for equal consideration. That basically means that universities promise if they get their applications in, then they will give everyone an equal chance of this place. Now, then they can apply to UCAS Extra, which is also kind of early clearing, mid or end of February until the 4th of July. That's when maybe they don't have any of their kind of, they don't have any choices, or they've decided they don't want any of their 5, and they can apply one at a time via UCAS Extra, early clearing. Then clearing opens on the 5th of July and runs until October the 20th. Now, that's a huge period of time, and I would say clearing courses get added all the time in that window, and the big day is the 14th of August 2025, or around that date, whatever year you're watching this video. That is A-level results day in England, and that's where all the courses explode, because you've got universities up until that time being like, okay, we've got a few spaces here. Rena, I'm sure you're going to explain a bit better. But then come results day, where universities know what they're dealing with in terms of which students have got which place, which students have met their offer, which haven't. That's when there's that big explosion. But just to be clear, clearing is not a day. It's a huge period of time. But the big day, the exciting day, is the 14th of August, 2025.
And things are slightly different if you're in Scotland, aren't they?
They are. So Scottish students get their results a week and a bit before English students, but actually it's to their advantage because they have their results. They can then go to the clearing availability and start having those clearing phone calls there and then. However, it is not until the 14th of August, that big kind of clearing sale, where all of the clearing offers come available. So essentially for a Scottish student, they are prepared earlier because they have their results earlier, but they're essentially first in line come that 14th of August 2025 to make their clearing phone calls. And can I just say, the best place to find all this information around clearing is the UCAS website. Go to the filter, go to available. They are the latest clearing options, or the university in question. But lots of students and parents get a bit confused as to where this clearing list is. There isn't a list, but it is on the UCAS website. Go to filter, go to availability. There are the clearing courses.
Just kind of thinking of when you're applying for tickets for a gig or something, and then they add in a few extra ones. If it's a bit like that, we're clearing them by the sounds of it, Rena.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Clem said, it's one of those things where students and parents need to have that kind of idea of thinking about it ahead of time. For a lot of students, sometimes it's thinking about it as a plan B type of thing. But actually for other students, it is their first interaction with higher education. So it isn't the second time they're coming back to think about it. They're actually thinking, oh, maybe this is what I want to do now that I've finished year 13 and that is the next step that I maybe want to do. So going via clearing. I think the important thing that I would always say to students as well when thinking about a timeline and to parents is to think about, okay, what information do I need? And clearing can be an opportunity to explore that information. So what is the course going to be like? You can ask those questions to a university throughout that process. Maybe if you're doing that plan B research, asking a university what grades they'd be looking for a course in clearing, because the university may not always be asking for the initial entry requirements that they were asking for during what we call the main cycle. So a university might be asking for slightly lower grades. So if a student is thinking, oh, actually, maybe I want to change my pathway, it's about getting that information from universities nice and early as part of that research.
And can I add as well, I'm always adding, in terms of, like, let's just get a bit more kind of granular about the time frame. I would say, as a parent, really try and help your young person focus on their exams up until July. That's their real kind of focus. But then from July, it's about really trying to have those conversations with your child about, how did your exams go? Do you think you may have got that offer? Do you think they might be lower, might be higher? And then start to have those conversations with your young person about the course they like, about institutions they might want to reconsider, and then start to have those conversations with universities in July, early August. Even if those universities do not have courses in clearing, it's absolutely worth giving that university a call and saying, hi, this is me, these are my A-levels or IB or whatever, this is what I'm hoping to get. If you had a course in clearing, do you think? So then you are coming to results day with okay, I know these courses are available, I have these clearing numbers. and then you go for it. There's a really interesting statistic that last year, I think 45% of students only made one clearing phone call. That shows how clearing has changed in terms of becoming a really strategic conversation. It's not just, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go wherever and blah, blah. It's actually kids going to clearing with a very clear sense of what they want and directing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I suppose that's about those conversations, which you're saying, and being quite honest about that. Could be quite a tough conversation as a parent, I guess, because you don't want to put pressure on your child and be asking, how did your exams go? Do you think you're going to get what you need? But I suppose it's about opening up and starting to have those conversations as early as you can.
Definitely. And I think you're totally right. Conversations with your child, and indeed conversations for your child to have with universities, are all tough, but this is part of growing up, isn't it? I think the way to reduce the pressure of it is to give it time. So don't leave it to the 13th of August where you're like, right, let's talk about your results. Okay, there's no time there. I think often maybe ask your child, when do you think is a good time to chat about your exams? Or, let's fit it in together. You're busy people, you're working, your child's probably swanning around Ibiza. I don't know what they're doing, but they're hopefully relaxing. And I think it's about honouring the relaxation and really trying to kind of be empathetic to what they're going through. They might not want to speak about it immediately, but I think try and organise with them a time as to when they would be happy to have those conversations. And I would say a really important piece of advice for parents is to help your young child practice having phone calls. They all have mobile phones. Very few of them make phone calls. I learned recently, my 17-year-old students told me, Miss, you can't just call your mate, you have to text them first on Snapchat and then be like, mate, can we have a call? And then a call comes later down the line. They're not used to having calls with their mates, let alone professionals. So I think also, really try and facilitate practicing phone calls as well as trying to facilitate actually having a conversation with your own child. But yeah, I appreciate they're hard. They're hard with my own kids.
Yeah.
I think to add to what Clem was saying as well, I think it's also about thinking as a parent, obviously, hopefully you're listening to this podcast because you want to get a better sense of things to help support your young person. Now, if you did go to university in the past, you might have quite a negative perception of clearing. You might have that kind of stigma that still kind of sits around that clearing is a panic option. Clearing is only for students who didn't meet the grades and actually aren't good enough to go to university, and that actually isn't the case at all. Clearing has really been redesigned, and hopefully Clem and I have kind of given that sense already, but actually it is about opportunity, it is about choice, it is about your young person assessing where they are in their journey now versus where they were in their journey at the application point. And as we said, having those conversations is also an opportunity for you to explore a bit more about clearing and do that research, because actually it's not a case of it's a panicked phone call and taking the first opportunity or the first university that you get through to. It really can be a process where you take, as Clem said, multiple phone calls. You get information from multiple universities about different courses and then take some time and opportunity to take that information away and think about what's the right choice for you and your young person.
I remember last year, one of my students was obsessed with engineering and actually went through clearing and ended up in nursing. And I think there's a real want as a parent myself, to kind of control and manage and make quick decisions and have a secure place. But I think, as you've said really well, students have applied to university all the way back into the first start of their final year of college. A lot changes for a young person in a week, let alone a couple of months. And I think really try and honour what your young person wants, not the vision you think that they want. And again, just to reiterate, I seem to love statistics today. 33% last year went through clearing because they either traded up because they did better or they just changed their mind. And again, this just shows how clearing has completely changed. You've got courses for UCL. I know I shouldn't be like specific, but UCL, Edinburgh, brilliant courses, brilliant universities. So as long as you have that time, it's an incredible opportunity.
Really interesting when you kind of frame it in that positive way, because you mentioned the stigma, and people might have a very different perception of clearing if you've grown up, if you went to university and now you're helping your child get through that. Do you think that stigma still exists a little bit when it comes to clearing?
Oh,
Rena?
absolutely. I still think that a lot of the young people that I speak to think, well, I don't want to end up in clearing. That's not where I want to be. But actually, as Clem said, more and more young people, as we're going out and doing this work, and I talk to young people about clearing being an opportunity, teachers and advisors through the work of UCAS are recognising that actually it's just a different way of looking at university. It's starting to creep in and trickle through, and get that messaging is definitely getting there. And hopefully within the next couple of years, even now, things like this will show that it is the opportunity. Again, that negative stigma, I think, had its place. You know, there was a time when clearing was about you had to be on the phone call at 8 a.m. and if you weren't the first or 10th person to get through, that was it. That wasn't your option. But actually talking about those spaces, what a lot of parents and supporters won't know, and a lot of young people won't know, is that actually universities get the grades a couple of days before results day. So actually, it really isn't a panic on the university side. The university usually knows by Monday or Tuesday what kind of spaces they're going to have available in clearing. They do a lot of their kind of work on the Sunday or the Monday when they receive results. And if we think about it, there's going to always be students who don't meet the entry requirements that they were kind of set out. There's going to be students who choose no longer to want to go to university. So those spaces will become available. So actually, there is a lot of growth opportunity there.
And that you might hear a phrase called embargo around. That embargo happens when universities have got your child's results and they can't communicate with you or your child. Similarly, schools the day before get the results. They similarly can't talk to you or your child. It's just good to know. But I think ultimately, the thing, and I do quite a lot of work on social media, and it's just amazing how many parents get in contact being like, oh my goodness, clearing was really amazing. Oh my goodness, my son is in so much. Literally today I had a message from a mum just being like, clearing was great. Like, I think people are realising as they go through, no more is there this war zone of like, where am I going to get to? I've got to go first. And it's now, it's a real negotiation. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and it sounds like there are opportunities there that you might not even have thought of before, you know, thinking about that student, engineering and then nursing, and it might just open your mind up to something that you'd never even considered as well.
To add to what Clem was saying, there is loads of different tools available in parents and young persons' arsenals. So in addition to the reconsideration things that Cambridge and Imperial do, UCAS also offers something called Clearing Plus, and that is something where a young person can kind of opt in to say that they're open to universities contacting them about clearing. So let's say, for example, a young person applied for a nursing course. Actually, alongside nursing, there are a lot of allied health courses like health and social care, radiography, something that a young person may not have considered. And actually, when it comes to clearing and results day, the university can get in touch and say, you might not have met the grades for this course, but we can offer you this course instead, or you've applied for this course, we also have this course available, what's your kind of preference there? So Clearing Plus is a fantastic opportunity for the young person to be provided with some options as well. And as parents, I'd encourage you to kind of scope that out. Again, as Clem said, have that conversation. Does your young person know about Clearing Plus? Because actually it's a fantastic tool that I think sometimes goes under the radar.
And another really important thing, actually, which we've not touched on, is we've got to be really important to help ensure that children are making the right choice based on accommodation available and finance. So don't get too excited about, oh, wow, there's Vet Med at Dundee. I mean, Vet Med probably won't appear in clearing, but let's just say it does in Dundee, and this student is in Cornwall, but Dundee doesn't kind of guarantee accommodation, and there's no sense of how this person's going to live up there. We just want to kind of slow that decision process down and make sure that the student has written a shopping list. So your role as parents, not you, John, but your role as parents is to help support your child and actually keep them organised.
Yeah.
Young people don't know how to organise notes. I'm really sorry to say, but they don't. So please work with your child of recording the clearing phone call numbers for each university, writing down their UCAS ID, practicing saying their GCSE results again and again and again, and having that information readily available. That is what your job as a parent can be.
And I think it's really interesting that you've both mentioned, you know, we're talking about some top institutions here, and you might be listening to this going, hang on, what? We're talking about clearing, and we're talking about, it might be a surprise, Rena, to parents.
No, and that's kind of going back to what I said earlier. So universities get those results a few days beforehand, and they will go through. And as Clem said, as universities, we want students to succeed. In my career, I've worked at 5 very different universities, and I've done clearing at every single one of them. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we want the young person to make the right decision for them about going to university. So it very much has become that shopping list that Clem was saying. I would say 10 years ago when I was on a clearing phone line, there was that rush, the panic. And now when I'm on a clearing phone line, it is that conversation of what do you want? What's right for you? So courses that can be quite competitive, they do tend to have waiting lists. So like Clem said, they will contact students who've already indicated an interest in them. Medicine, pharmacy, engineering courses at selective and competitive universities. But it does happen. Sometimes an exam just doesn't go the way the students want. So we did see a few years ago, I think it was a chemistry exam, there was a high number of students didn't do so well in the chemistry exam, and it brought down the grade of quite a lot of students, meaning that a lot of students didn't meet the entry requirements for pharmacy, I think it was. So actually universities had to make a decision. They're going to make a bit of an adjustment for those who got the slightly lower grade, or go to their waiting lists and offer it in clearing as well. So that's why there's all those different things for students to be thinking about.
Just some advice that might be quite useful. If you are thinking your child might be considering clearing, look at single honours as opposed to dual honours or niche courses. What I mean by single honours is psychology as opposed to
psychology and crim.
Exactly, yeah. Criminology, or history as opposed to law.
Yeah. This is a great game. I love it.
I'm trying to go for
it. What should we do again? English as opposed to
history and international relations.
Boom. Sometimes single honours appear more because they're a little bit less competitive. They are not any less good, but that just could be a way in to trying to kind of understand, because actually that might be one of the issues with clearing is actually information and course overload of choice. So yeah, maybe.
I'd like to do some top tips with both of you now. So let's talk about really supporting your child through the clearing process. I'd like to talk about managing those expectations and some of the emotions around that as well. Rena, let's start with you.
Yeah, and I think emotions can be incredibly high on results day, particularly if a student hasn't got the grades that they were expecting. I mean, my couple of top tips are a lot of the research that Clem and I have already said, having those phone calls ready to go, having that UCAS ID, having that sense of what you want to do with it. But I would also say some of my top tips, this is going to sound so horrible, is try not to be on holiday. You know, it can be really tricky if your young person hasn't got the grades that they were hoping for, and you're trying to make those calls from a Spanish villa. You know, if you are in the UK, it can be a little bit better. A top tip about knowing that actually UCAS doesn't provide your young person with the grades. They will still have to get those grades from their exam centre. So is it that their school is going to be opening at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock? At what point will they be given their actual grades? Because actually a lot of young people assume that UCAS is going to provide them with that information, and it won't. UCAS will tell your young person whether they've got into the university and course of their choice or whether they haven't. And that's all UCAS can provide them on their hub on that day. They will still need to contact their school or college and know the process of how they're going to get their results.
I love all that. That's very good. The stuff I would say is, number one, make sure that if you are going to act on your child's behalf or be part of that conversation, you need to be their nominated access on their UCAS form. Number two, this is a more emotional, soft skill to really underline, but I really want parents to know we work in education. This is our thing. However, your child's success is not predicated on what university they go to, what course they do, and what grades they get. And I know it's really hard. I have a 5-year-old and I'm comparing how his handwriting is compared to his best mate. Compare and despair is so easy to do, but really try and hold true to that fact that they're going to be an amazing success, whatever happens. Just try and really keep it in perspective. And if that means not phoning your best mate, then just do it. Just, I think as a parent, really try and keep your perspective on it. And then the third thing, I really suggest having a practice phone call, calling a university. Look, you've got Rena on the other end. She's so friendly and lovely. The amount of times young people don't say their name clearly, like, you've got the most extraordinary names, like, but actually they need to practice saying their names. They need to practice the kind of phonetic alphabet of, like, my name is Alpha Papa, not Banana Zulu, whatever. Practice saying their name, practice the results, because that would really help smooth over the actual practicalities of it.
It's really just about, again, if your young person is emotional on the day, trying to calm them down before they make that phone call. You know, the person on the other line will be empathetic, they will be supportive, but ultimately, as Clem says, we need that information from them. So calming them down before we make that phone call. And again, ultimately thinking again about the lack of rush. It isn't about a rush. If your young person is made an offer, the vast majority of universities will give them roughly 24 to 48 hours to accept that offer. So have a conversation again with them. Would they like to go visit the university if that's possible? Most universities will be offering some sort of campus tour or show around. Can they actually step foot onto the campus before they accept that offer? Have you got the time and ability to be able to do that? Again, great if you're in the UK and able to do that instead of hopping on a flight back over. And that can be an additional fantastic support as a parent for your young person.
And I'd just like to talk a little bit about helping them keep that positive mindset as well, because you've both talked about the opportunities that are out there, and it might be something different to what they were expecting, but could be a brilliant opportunity. Clem, have you got any tips for just keeping that positive mindset and helping them to keep the positive mindset?
I think let's go to some statistics, John. You know, last year, 33% did better or just changed their mind and went through clearing. 74,000 students went through clearing last year. Like, this is not a last-minute attempt anymore. This is a strategic opportunity, and I think just be like, you know, we made these decisions when you were a couple of months younger. Now let's look at what we've got and let's see where we can go. And I think just embrace that opportunity.
Rena?
I would say that I would go down to that kind of anecdotal thing. I work with a lot of student ambassadors, and I worked with a lot of students, and there no longer, again, is a kind of thing of a student going, oh, I came through clearing. Like, oh, I came through clearing, and actually it was the best decision that I'd made, because actually I've really settled. I love my course. I love the friends I've made. And again, I kind of big believer that if it's right for your young person, they will kind of find it. So that is the important thing there, that again, the vast majority of students who go through the application in this way do find the right thing for them and end up incredibly happy on the course and university that they select.
Both of you, thank you so much for joining me for today's Parents Podcast. Rena and Clem, great to see you both, and thanks for being with us to talk through something that's really important. Thank you very much indeed to you for watching and listening as well. As you've been hearing, we've talked about clearing, we've talked about how it's changed, the opportunities that are out there for your young person, and how you can best support them as well. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Parents Podcast, brought to you by UCAS. I hope you'll join me again next time.
Stay informed with expert advice straight to your inbox. Sign up now for key updates, deadlines and guidance to help you support your young person with confidence.